He is the junior senator from Ohio with only 2 years in government, but J.D. Vance is one of former President Trump's biggest defenders.
I want to help Donald Trump get elected because it's really important that he become the next president.
In the Senate,
how can we defend Ukraine's borders when we're not even defending our own American border?
And on the campaign trail.
So the question is, are we going to send America First fighters to Washington, D.C.?
He's one of the leading voices of Trump's MAGA America First movement, not holding back and pushing the former president's agenda.
Republicans, we need to govern like we won the majority the American people gave us, not like a bunch of cowards.
But that hasn't always been the case. This was Vance in 2016.
Right, I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him.
He was deeply critical of Trump then, but here's Vance just 6 years later.
The president is right. I wasn't always nice, but the simple fact is he's the best president of my lifetime, and he revealed the corruption in this country like nobody else.
Running for Senate in 2022 in Ohio as an extremely pro-Trump candidate.
I was wrong about Donald Trump. I didn't think he was going to be a good president, Brett. He was a great president.
Vance shot to fame as the author.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about some breaking news here from the Trump campaign ahead of his highly anticipated speech at the RNC, where initially it was thought that he was going to announce his vice presidential pick during that speech, but it's been announced now, right? So they've essentially announced that Trump is picking J.D. Vance as his running mate for the 2024 election. Now, J.D. Vance, if you guys aren't familiar with him, we've covered him I wouldn't say a lot on this channel, but we've covered him more recently, okay? Because I told you guys that he, along with Doug Burgum, were probably the candidates that were at the top of the list because of how the Trump campaign should be thinking about the voters that they need in order to win this election. And that is what this pick, in my opinion, is all about. J.D. Vance is a senator from Ohio, and I know that a lot of people are disappointed that the pick wasn't somebody more sexy, okay, like Vivek Ramaswamy or maybe a Tulsi Gabbard. But I'm going to tell you guys why this is a solid pick. Do I think that it's the best pick to carry MAGA into the future? No, but I do have some good news for you guys who are disappointed that Vivek wasn't the pick, because I thought that Vivek would have been the best pick from the perspective of who can carry the MAGA movement into the future, especially in the wake of the failed assassination attempt on the former president. But this pick right here is probably the second best pick if you guys really, really, really want Vivek to be involved in the MAGA movement in the future. And I'm going to explain you guys why that is the case. But first, let's actually read Trump's statement that he posted on True Social here, because I want you guys to understand exactly what he said about this. After lengthy deliberation and thought, and considering the tremendous talents of many others, I have decided that the person best suited to assume the position of Vice President of the United States is Senator J.D. Vance of the great state of Ohio. J.D. honorably served our country in the Marine Corps, graduated from Ohio State University in 2 years, summa cum laude, and is a Yale Law School graduate, where he was editor of the Yale Law Review and president of the Yale Law Veterans Association. JD's book, Hillbilly Eulogy, became a major bestseller and movie as it championed the hardworking men and women of our country. JD has had a very successful business career in technology and finance, and now during the campaign will be strongly focused on the people he fought so brilliantly for, the American workers and farmers in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Minnesota, and far beyond. Ding, ding, ding. What did I tell you guys? Right? I was telling you guys going into this, like, that is probably what they're thinking about the most, is getting those voters in the states that Trump just happens to be struggling in. And when I say struggling, I mean not landsliding Joe Biden, right? In states where he's winning, but again, not by a landslide, at least as far as we know, okay, as of right now, following that shooting, because I think that he's going to see a major boost in the polls following the failed assassination attempt. But regardless, those are the states that are going to be the key to Trump winning, right? And that's why he made this pick, okay? And this is something that people shouldn't be surprised by, because ultimately at the end of the day, you know, the vice president is only as useful as somebody that can help you win, right? If he can't help you win, even if you are ideologically aligned on everything, then it doesn't really matter because you're not in power, you're not in office. Now, in the case of somebody like JD Vance, I know a lot of people are going to be upset about some things that he said about Trump in the past. Yes, I've heard all the things that he said about Trump in the past. However, I'm not the one that has to make the decision, and I'm not the one that he was talking about, right? He was talking about Trump. And if Trump and his family are okay with the things that JD said in the past, if they have forgiven him for it, then who am I to negatively judge or to hold it against him when the family, the person that he was talking about, obviously doesn't care that much about what he said. So it's not that big of a deal to them. So why should it be that big of a deal to me? Okay, apparently JD Vance is good friends with Donald Trump Jr. And I think that's part of the reason why this pick was made. Again, especially following the failed assassination. He has to pick somebody that is close to the family, okay? And his friendship with Donald Trump Jr. may have been the key to Trump feeling very comfortable with having JD Vance as the vice presidential running mate, despite the things that he said in the past. Again, we know this is how politics goes, guys. Think about all the things Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz said about Trump and the things that Trump said about them. But, you know, you're competing, okay, in a primary. You're trying to get elected. You're trying to get into a position of power. Again, party fights happens. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you have to put your differences aside and move forward together, especially if there's policy alignment and everybody's on the same page. And most certainly there is policy alignment between JD Vance and Trump, specifically when it comes to foreign policy. Okay, I know a lot of people like to believe that JD isn't MAGA, that he's fake because of the things he said about Trump, but I actually think that most of his criticisms of Trump had to do more with Trump's personality and who he is as a person, not necessarily policy, okay? Because when you talk about foreign policy, JD Vance seems to be very aligned with Trump, especially when you talk about the war in Ukraine, okay? When you talk about domestic policies, trade, things of that nature, I think JD is definitely aligned with Trump when it comes to those issues as well. I think JD, honestly, is just a super solid pick if you want to try to thread the needle, right? You want to get somebody in there that is aligned close enough to the America First movement, which again, technically JD is a part of the new right movement, right? So think about people like Tucker Carlson, or maybe I can even throw Sagar Njidi in there as well too. If you want to think about like, what is the ideology of the new right? Again, it's basically Tucker, and JD Vance is in that realm. Vivek Ramaswamy is in that realm. So ideologically, like, he's fine, okay? But again, what this pick really came down to is his appeal to those Midwestern voters in the Rust Belt, those states that were severely affected by trade policies, that had their jobs, their manufacturing jobs go overseas. Yeah, this is the perfect pick if you want those voters, right? Because again, that is where Trump is performing the worst, okay? And that was the key to Trump winning in 2016, and those states were the reason that Trump lost in 2020. So with that being said, for people who are upset because it wasn't Vivek, let me give you some hope, okay? Because for those of us who wanted Vivek, and I wanted Vivek, and the reason why is because I thought that undoubtedly, it's not even a competition really, Vivek was the best pick to carry MAGA into the future. But from an electability standpoint, Vivek was not the best pick. And you guys got to understand, there are multiple perspectives in regards to what makes the best VP pick. It just depends on what you value the most, okay, in a VP. And you can value multiple things like the ability to market the presidency or the ability to run the country and actually be a part of running the country. It just depends on what the commander-in-chief, the president, values, right? So again, there's a best VP pick if you look at it from the perspective of who's going to help you win, right? There's a best VP pick from the perspective of who can run the country the best just in case the president dies. There's a best VP pick from the perspective of who can carry the movement into the future, who's the best leader. All these things are different requirements, okay? People got to understand that. But from the perspective of the best pick for the America First future and Vivek Ramaswamy being involved in the America First movement, this is probably the second best pick. And why do I say that? It's because JD Vance and Vivek are friends. I believe they had known each other since college. And I'm pretty sure that JD and Vivek are ideologically influenced by each other, right? So they're close friends, right? They're good friends, which means that Vivek is definitely going to be involved, okay? He's definitely going to be a part of this movement. And if anything, when Trump and his 4 years are over, if JD Vance is up next, you can see JD pick somebody like a Vivek to be his vice president. And then after that, you know, maybe Vivek carries the torch long into the future. I don't know, right? But I'm just saying that if it wasn't going to be Vivek, then the second best pick, when you're talking about carrying this movement into the future, had to be JD, right? Because I just think it's too early for Vivek right now, right? I think Vivek needs a lot more exposure to the base. The base needs to trust him, right? Vivek just kind of came out of nowhere. And although I trust the guy and I think he's brilliant, right? I think he would have been the best pick. I understand why some people are saying not yet, right? Let's give it some time, let him prove himself, and then go from there, okay? But at least as of right now, JD seems to be the guy that can carry the movement into the future. And there was no other pick outside of Vivek Ramaswamy that would have been better for, again, MAGA's future, okay? So I want people to understand that. Like, if you would have picked Tim Scott, Doug Burgum, who for a while I thought that Doug Burgum may have been the number one guy, but he decided not to go with Doug Burgum, and that's fine. You know, Marco Rubio, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, out of all those people, out of all the other speculated choices, only Vivek and Byron Donalds as well too, only they would have been arguably better choices to carry the movement into the future, right? So again, you could easily have a scenario where, again, it's JD Vance, the vice president. After Trump's 4 years is up, maybe JD picks a Byron Donalds to be his running mate. Boom, now you got Byron Donalds. Or maybe he picks a Vivek to be a running mate. Regardless, those people, they're going to be involved. And I think that this pick right here is kind of the perfect kind of thread the needle pick that checks all the basic boxes that you need for a vice president as a potential successor. But also at the same time is going to get you some of these voters that you really, really need in some key swing states if you want to actually win the election. So my only concern, and again, this is not really something I'm very afraid of or anything like that. It's just one of those things just to keep in mind. We know what the media will do when it comes to JD Vance now being up against Kamala, right? Because Kamala, as of right now, is still VP, and they are pumping the brakes on her replacing Biden. But regardless, one of the things I said is that Trump has to keep in mind his VP's ability to attack Kamala Harris. And I think that JD Vance definitely has the ability to go after her, but just got to keep in mind how the media is going to try to frame things. And they're definitely going to try to play up the whole race angle. And the fact that, again, JD Vance is a straight white Christian male, and you got Trump as well, too. They're definitely going to play that up, right? And this is how they're going to attack this ticket. But hopefully, the American people can see through that nonsense in the race and identity politics that the media will try to play in order to defend Kamala Harris and to make it so she can't be criticized. But outside of that, I don't have any real concerns. I think that it was a solid pick. I know everybody won't be happy, but hey, it is what it is. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, and share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.